Hello, my listeners. Welcome back to the courtroom of Harmony and Kale. Today is chapter 2, and I hope that you are enjoying the story. Let's get on with it, shall we?
We're both lost at a day. Because you're patient. Pretty much similar. Harmless heartbreak. I don't wanna hear your thoughts. You don't wanna feel.
You lied to me, Harmony said, staring at Lola across the table in her home. The day's trial had been exhausting, and it left Lola crying and Harmony feeling defeated, a feeling she hated. Now, Lola sat with her hands twirling and her eyes dried. I didn't lie to you. You just never asked me. Laughing, Harmony asked, what part of tell me everything did you not understand? I was made a fool today in court because you hid information from me. Lola shrugged and lifted her eyes to look at her. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't do much now that they've painted Bella as a money-hungry homewrecker who is out to catch Kale for his fame. But what about the fingerprints? Didn't you say that Kale's fingerprints were all over her? Yes, because he was sleeping with her, so it would be naturally his. He has no alibi. He did it. Harmony took a deep breath. I'm not so sure I believe everything you say now. Look, I'm sorry I didn't share that information with you. I should have, and I made you look like an amateur in court. I apologize. But we're not on trial for her life decisions, right? We're on trial for murder. But it doesn't make it look good that her husband told her to snatch him for his money. He claims he woke up with her body butchered beside him, and there's no answer for how his window on the 11th floor was opened either. Tomorrow he'll be put on the stand, and don't worry, I will grill him hard. Lola shook her head. I was so angry today, and I wanted to hurt him. He sat there so smug and not even a hint of guilt on his face. Well, he claims he's innocent. He's not. I know he killed her, Harmony. I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe that either. 6 months ago. Detective Reyes, how nice to see you waltzing into our side of town, Harmony said as she pushed open her office door and gestured him in. He looked tired, but so did she. As they settled into the chairs in her office, she leaned back in her chair and smiled at him. What can I do for you? For starters, you can tell me how you are and what you've been up to for the past 6 months. Laughing, she replied, I've been doing really well since you and I parted ways. But I know our romantic one-night stand is not why you are here. Harmony, you read the news this morning? I haven't checked online. Why? Brian tossed a folder to her. Kale Viser. You know the name? She took the folder and opened it only to close it real quick again. What the hell am I looking at here? A little warning would have done me good. Sorry. I assumed you would be used to it by now. I'm used to being a wolf in court, not to bodies being butchered like this. And Kale Viser? Isn't he some rich pop singer? Nodding, Brian replied, Yeah. And he woke up to a dead woman on his bed. But get this. He says he didn't do it. Really? How does that work? He claims that he went to bed with her, alive, after several sessions of lovemaking and wine. The alcohol got to him, and he slept like a baby. He woke up to the sound of the wind blowing through his open window and a butchered body of his latest romance on his bed. Harmony took a deep breath and opened the file again. The bloody photos of the scene stared up at her, and she reached up to touch her mouth in shock. There was so much blood that it soaked the entire bed and even the floor. She looked up at him and shook her head in disgust. What kind of animal is he? That's just it. He's claiming he's not. So why are you here? Because I know you would take this case, especially when DA is Dukan. Harmony shut the folder and pushed it back to him. Duke is a fluke in court, and I've been waiting to take him down since he tried to assault me a few years ago. That's why I came to you, and I'm sure your boss will be coming in shortly about this case. Thanks. He got up to go and then turned around to look at her. If you ever feel lonely, give me a call. Harmony grinned. I haven't felt that lonely yet. Present. Kale Viser sat in a cell at the county jail on a cotton bed with sheets that scratched his skin and an orange jumpsuit that was too tight for his muscles. The $1,000 suit he wore to court today was in his attorney's hands, and taking it off had him feeling angry and bitter. Although today the prosecutor was good, his attorney had been better, slicing her witness in half. He groaned and leaned back on the bed. When would this be over, so that he could get back to his normal life? Although he loved a good roll in the sack with different women, he didn't kill her, and he for sure did not butcher her as they painted him to do. Kale's life had been a public one since the beginning of time, from the very first moment he grabbed the microphone to sing, to the latest album on the shelf that hit rocket sales. He was a smart man who had a talent for singing, but also a businessman who could turn a penny into a million. Growing up poor, he was never one to back down from an opportunity, and look at what he did with his. He made himself into a household name, but he had been too comfortable, and he forgot to protect himself. He knew that the woman had been too good to be true. She spoke of so many things that she wanted to do with him, and now look at the mess he was in. He shut his eyes, and he could remember exactly what had happened that evening. 6 months ago. Kale's head was spinning, and he felt the wine kick in harder than usual. The room before him began to fade, and the lights seemed to dim. He heard Bella's voice beside him, and he turned to find her half naked wearing his shirt as she crawled up to where he sat. He tried to reach for her, and he failed as he fell face forward into the bed. The cold wind woke him up as he let out a strange sound of awakening and then turned. The first thing he noticed was that the window was opened, and he couldn't remember if he had left it that way or not. And then he felt something wet and sticky on his back, and when he turned, he bolted right out of bed and slammed against the wall where his back left a bloody imprint. Bella's wide-opened eyes stared up at him, with a bloody mess of a butchering sight before him. Her fingers and toes were severed off, and it looked as if she'd bled to death. There were numerous knife wounds to her body, and half her face had been sliced off, leaving the soft white tissue showing from beneath her cheekbone. "Oh my God!" he cried as he fought to stand. He reached for the phone and dialed 911. As soon as the police arrived, he was handcuffed and taken to the county jail. Later that evening, Duke Hahn arrived with bad news. He had been accused of murder and was being held with no bail. "But I didn't do it," Kale cried. "I went to bed and she was alive. I woke up to her looking like that." Duke leaned back in his chair and took a deep breath. "Kale, this looks really bad on all levels. Your fingerprints are all over the place, and so is your semen, which makes this even worse. You were with her last night." "It doesn't mean I killed her." "So what are you saying? That someone slipped into your house and butchered her while you slept? How does it explain that you didn't hear a single thing?" Kale wiped his face with his hands. "I know how this looks like to the public, okay? If I was to design a perfect murder plot, I would do the same, but I didn't do it. I was drunk last night, and I knocked out cold. The wind woke me up, and I found her that way. Yes, my prints are there because it's my house, and yeah, we were making love, so my semen would be found. But I didn't kill her." "What are we going to use against this? And where did you pick her up anyways?" "At my concert. She locked eyes with me and wouldn't stop staring, so I called her on stage. I slipped her a key to come to my room, and it started from there." "Kale, you're smart at times, and then you're real stupid too. I was going to end it with her anyways. She was too needy." "That sounds like a murder right there. You were going to end it." Kale swore and leaned back in his chair. "Just get me out of here. I don't belong in this place." Present. Kale rubbed his face and took a deep breath as he thought about the day. The prosecutor was a cute-looking woman, and he had never had a woman like her in his bed. But right now, him looking like cooked meat on death row was looking better than ever getting her to be in his bed. Tomorrow he would be put on stand, and Duke had warned him about her style of work. He had read up on her for so many nights now, and he was ready to taunt her to make her look like a fool for a second time in a row. The morning sun rose as Kale was brought handcuffed into the courtroom wearing another suit of his. Duke shook hands with him as they both sat down, and he turned to find Harmony wearing a bright red business dress suit with her blonde hair down and curly. She was busy shuffling papers together, and he smirked as they stood when Judge Wilkes entered. "Court is in session. Defense, court is in your hands," she said. "The defense calls Kale Viser." He got up and walked to where he was sworn in, and Duke stood up. "Mr. Viser, can you tell us about your profession?" "I'm an artist, businessman, and CEO." "Pretty decorative. Can you explain what you own?" "I own several bank shares, and I'm the president of Hungerless." "What is Hungerless?" "It's a non-profit organization that feeds and clothes children in need all across America and the United Nations." "How long have you been doing that?" 16 years. "So for 16 years, you've been helping feed children in need?" "Yes." "Thank you for your kindness." Duke moved forward. "How did you meet Miss Bella Stein?" "At my concert." "And how was that done? Did she come up to talk to you?" "No. I was singing on stage, and she was looking right at me. I pulled her up and gave her a key to my room. The rest was history." "How long were you and Miss Stein dating?" "A little over 4 months." "Were you serious with her?" "No." "What did you think of her?" "Objection!" Harmony said as she stood up, leading the witness. "Sustained." "Reword it, counselor," Judge Wilkes said. "Yes, Your Honor," Duke replied as Harmony sat down. "How did you see her as a person?" "Like any other woman I slept with. Needy, obsessed, and controlling." "Objection!" Harmony said as she stood again. "What does the victim's behavior have anything to do with the murder charges? It's irrelevant, Your Honor." "Overruled. I'm going to allow it. Sit down, Miss Lovington." Duke smiled as she did, and he crossed his arms. "Mr. Viser, can you explain what you mean about your thoughts of her?" "Most women don't see me as a man. They just see me as a bank for their needs. Bella was no different." "How did you know that?" "She was always asking me for money, for little things like groceries, bills she couldn't pay, and it was getting annoying. I was going to end the relationship with her." "And tell us about the night that you last spent with her." "I went to meet up with her at a restaurant. We had dinner, and then we went to a favorite club of mine, Monaco, on 6th and Cyrus, where we danced up until midnight. We came back to my place, had some light snacks, made love, drank wine, and then made love some more. I had too much to drink and fell asleep somewhere a little after 2 in the morning." "And when did you wake up?" "Around 6 in the morning." "Can you describe to the jury what you found?" "I woke up to her, dead on my bed, missing toes and fingers and half of her face. The window in my room was opened, and I live on the top floor. I called the cops right away." "Did you hear anything during the night?" "No." Duke nodded. "No further questions." "Your witness," Judge Wilkes said. Kale watched as Harmony smiled, and she stood up walking halfway to him, and to his surprise asked, "Mr. Viser, isn't it true that you were married once to an aunt of Bella Stein?" He remained silent and didn't answer. "Mr. Viser, you are under oath and will answer the question the counselor has asked of you," Judge Wilkes said. He cleared his throat and replied, "Yes, I was." "And did you know that Bella was her niece?" "Yes, I did." He glanced at Duke, who had his hands in fists. "Could we say that this meetup was not entirely a coincidence?" Smiling, Kale replied, "Well, I didn't force her to come to my concert, if that's what you're asking. I wasn't even aware she was a fan of mine." "And is this how you treat your fans?" "Objection," Duke said. "Withdrawn," Harmony said as she crossed her arms. "Mr. Viser, how was it that you didn't hear a single thing on the night of the murder?" "I don't know either. But I had a lot to drink, and it had slowed me down to the point of being unconscious." "Do you recall the window being opened before you fell asleep?" "No. I remember entering the apartment and everything was closed." "When you say that she was needy, controlling, and obsessed, besides wanting you to pay her bills and whatnot, what else did she do that you didn't like?" "She called me around the clock asking me to tell her where I was at all times. I was told to check in with her everywhere I went. Trust seemed to be an issue with her. Well, she can't speak for herself, Mr. Viser, so that says a lot. She picked up a sheet of paper and looked up. Permission to approach the witness. You may. She walked to him and handed him a sheet of paper. Mr. Viser, is this your handwriting? He glanced at it and replied, yes. Can you read what is on that sheet of paper for the jury, please? Kale let out a deep breath and read, Hey, baby, I have to go now, but here's some spending money for you. There's more where that came from, so just ask. She took the paper back and smiled. Your Honor, I am entering this as Exhibit A for evidence that clearly shows the defendant providing money to the victim, although he states that she was needy and controlling, always asking for money. Aloud, Judge Wilkes said, Are you trying to make me look bad, Miss Lovington? Kale asked suddenly. She turned around, shocked, and a smile appeared on her face. I will ask the questions here, Mr. Viser, if you don't mind. The one on trial here is you. You want someone to blame, but you're blaming the wrong person. If you look deeper enough besides that handsome cop who you rolled around with in the sack, you would know. Order, Judge Wilkes said. Mr. Viser, you will hold your words until asked a question. Do you understand? Kale smiled and didn't answer as he watched Harmony's face turn bright red. When she got her emotions under control again, she stepped toward him. Mr. Viser, what was your marriage to her Aunt Celia like? It was boring, mistaken, and not to be repeated. But you asked her to marry you, did you not? He shook his head. No. She claimed to be pregnant with my child. That was the only reason why she got a wedding ring. And then I took it away after I realized she lied. I made sure she got nothing too. 6 months ago. Kale stared at Celia Tran sitting on the edge of the bed, her makeup running down her face, her hair a complete mess, and the anger he felt inside him roared loudly. He had made the biggest mistake of his entire life, and if he had been a second slower, would never have realized the awful truth. How long were you going to let me continue to think this was true? He asked. She shoved at her cheeks. If you did your job as a man, I would become pregnant as planned and everything would be done. Why do you hate me so much to even try this stunt? Did you think it was okay to play around with my feelings? And what? You didn't? You said you would protect me and make me happy, Celia cried. And I tried to, but here you are, Celia, lying to me about something as big as this. How do you think that makes me feel? I was about to make the biggest mistake of my life in giving you everything of mine for this non-existent child. She got up and pushed her hands against his chest. You ruined everything. Kale shoved her back and shook his head. No, you ruined everything yourself. You can get out, and don't ever let me find you near here again. Thank you for tuning in. Chapter 3 will be out shortly.
We're both lost at a day. It's your patient. Pretty much similar. So fancy when I'm in the spotlight. I'm still in my privacy. A craving that is knocking you out. Just getting visions for my life. They got me when I'm not holding you tight. Reading your eyes and you love it. Cause the distance made you live it alright. I'm reading your eyes and you love it. Your thoughts. You don't wanna feel my skin. You don't wanna feel my skin. You just wanna dream of sin. Sickness floating in our veins. Players in a spotlight game.